Okay, make sure you click on your existing file and select. And we're going to be picking up, let's see, we talked about
non-personal property torts.
right, so, okay, there we go. Thank you. So we had left off talking about property damage, and we'd been talking about torts against real property. What we're going to be talking about to start with today is torts against personal property. And remember, personal property is different from real property in that it is mobile. These are often sometimes referred to in legal stuff as chattels. I'm not throwing that out there so I can sound like I am sophisticated and know all of the legal inside jargon. I use that because if you've ever heard the word chattel before, it was probably in reference to slavery in America, where people owned people, right? That was the same legal concept, right? That those people were your chattels, right? You owned them, they were your property. We still use chattels, we just fortunately don't still do slavery. So torts against personal property or chattels, right, can include damage, right? So if somebody keys your car, that is a tort against your personal property. There's also something called conversion. We all know what conversion is, we just don't usually call it conversion. That's theft. But in the law, it's referred to as conversion because you are converting someone else's chattels to yours. And I know you're thinking, well, that's just theft, right? It is, right? But this is the law, so remember, it can never be that simple. Bless you. All right, now, another note here, kind of a cautionary thing, in terms of preventing personal property torts. Because some of you, upon hearing about somebody else, having their purse snatched or something stolen out of their car, you've got grand heroic notions of what you would do if somebody tried to do that to you, right? Or if you saw that somebody doing that to someone else. You have to be very careful about this. Nonviolent prevention is always okay. And nonviolent prevention, it's not the exciting thing, right? It's not Bridget catching a thief in the act, right, and pummeling them into unconsciousness. It is Bridget locking their car, right? Or putting your stuff underneath the seat so that nobody can see it and be tempted to break into your car. That stuff is, of course, always okay. And I highly recommend that you do it, right? No matter how much somebody makes fun of you. Because if somebody makes fun of you for being paranoid about hiding stuff in your car, you can tell them my story. And I'm finally, I think, at the point in my life where I'm ready to admit this. This story occurred at a Creed concert. Right?
What concert?
Creed concert in the very early 2000s. Right? At Kemper Arena. Right? I think two of my friends drove down carloads of people. I drove down a third carload of people to go to this concert. Kemper Arena, for those of you that aren't familiar, is in kind of a rough part of Kansas City. And we parked in a lot where you paid people to use their parking lot. That was it. I think it was like the lot of a car dealership that didn't have a whole lot of cars for sale at that time. And I made all of the people who rode down with me tuck their purses and stuff under the seats of the car. And they all thought, oh, you're being such a stick. Right? Which, none of will surprise absolutely nobody in this room, right? What? Dr. Brown's a stick? Yeah, no, of course he is, right? He's an uptight guy. We all expect that. And so I was uptight. I made them put all their stuff under the seats of the car. We all go into the concert. We all somehow have a good time. In hindsight, I don't know how. Right? We come back out. We get to the lot. Every single car in that lot has its windows smashed, right? And all of the stuff has been stolen, except for Mr. Stick. Right? Mr. Stick's car is perfectly intact. Why? Because there was nothing to steal, as far as they were concerned. And this was a winter concert, right? So everybody else had to schlep over to a convenience store, pay too much for duct tape and polyethylene sheet, right, and have a cold, noisy ride home where all of my passengers with Mr. Stick, right, were able to return home in quiet, warm comfort. Right? So you tell somebody, right, the next time, like, you're just being paranoid, or says something even less charitable to you about you wanting them to hide their stuff. You can tell them that story. You can also tell them I went to a Creed concert. I can live with the shame. Yes, Tommy.
Anytime I have like anything like remotely in the car, I just put it on or I never leave anything.
Yeah. No, you have to. I mean, so here's another story from my life as a lifeguard at the Hyde Park pool. Kids would break into cars for, like, I don't know, 10% remaining tobacco of an already smoked cigarette. Right? Because this was far enough back in time, and this was Missouri, so everybody still smoked. Right? The lifeguards, they're 16, but they've got ashtrays full of half-smoked cigarettes. And little 7-year-old kids would break into their cars to steal their already half-smoked cigarettes. And this is why none of you want to live in the South End. Does anybody live in the South End? All right, it's okay. I mean, I grew up. Acela, what do you mean?
I'm from Monterey, but my mom calls
That's
it
not the
South
South
End.
End. That is not the South End.
My
No.
mom calls it the South End, but I know.
No, I spent the first 8 years of my life living just a few yards from Monterey. Monterey has nothing to do with the South End. All right, you're in Midtown now. All right.
State anymore.
You don't. Well, and that's fair enough. All right. So with those stories out of the way, all right, violent protection can be okay, but you have to be very careful about this. All right. For one thing, your force can only be reasonable. If somebody tries to run by and grab your purse, one, you can hold on to it. You could also try and shove them away. That's fine. Right. But somebody can't come up to Trevor and try and steal Trevor's purse and Trevor go, ha-ha, and shoot them in the face. Right? You can't do that. And it's not the ha-ha part that makes it illegal. Let's be very clear about that. Right? Even if Trevor only just pulls out a gun and without uttering any kind of noise at all, just shoots them in the face for trying to steal his purse, can't do that. Right. Now, Trevor, I'm actually going to guess you don't carry a purse all that often.
Not that.
And if you do, you can say, this is not a defense when it comes to drugs and the cops. You can actually, with a purse, say, I'm just holding this for someone else. Right? And that's a legit defense. Okay. It's also totally fine if you just want to carry around a purse for your own. Right? There's a lot of convenience to carrying around a purse. All right, so your force can only be reasonable. Right? And that is hard to define. Sometimes legislators have tried to make this easier. I think we previously talked about castle doctrine or castle law, the idea that if somebody breaks into your house while you are there and they are inside your house, you can shoot them. Right? You don't have to ask questions. Right? You can just shoot them. In some states, that's been extended to your car. Right? If Acela is sitting in her car at a stoplight and somebody comes up with a knife and says, get out of the car, or even maybe if they don't have a knife, get out of the car, Acela can shoot them. Right? Now, you can't, say, I've got a gun, and as they run away, you pull up onto the sidewalk, pursue them, and shoot from the open window. Like that you can't do. You don't get to pursue anybody. You could just, it's about trying to prevent stuff. Because in our law, I know this will sound un-American to some people, but we still tend to value human life more than property. I know, Tommy, it sounds backwards. So old-fashioned to value human life over property. I know. Yes, Bridge and then Acela.
Somebody called the police on my manager trying to break into her own car yesterday because she locked the keys in her car.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that happened. But I'm sure it was fine. Yeah. All right.
She was outside in the parking lot with a coat hanger.
Yeah, unfortunately, that doesn't really work anymore. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's just, it's harder to break into cars these days. All right. Yes, Acela.
So let's say you had a taser instead of a gun. Can you just tase them, or would that still be illegal?
Well, that's the trickiness of defining reasonable force. Right? I mean, if somebody is just running by and grabs your purse to take off with it, I would not tase them. Right?
No,
if it was
in last scenario you just said, they had a knife or something.
Oh yeah. No, anywhere you can use a gun, you can use a taser. Right? Even though that is also un-American. You should not own a taser. You should only own a gun. Right?
I feel like
And you should
it's
always
more
shoot.
like
No, I'm
that.
just kidding about that. And I'm also not picking on gun ownership. Again, those dead animals, well, the deer at least, are dead because I killed them and I did not use a bow and arrow. Right? That's too much work. Way too much work.
I feel like it's more likely that people have a taser or pepper spray than a gun.
Yeah, no, I mean, and so yes, any case where you could shoot a person, nobody's going to be like, well, pepper spray is too cruel, and a taser could have caused a heart attack. Why didn't you just shoot them like a normal person? No, so those would be okay. Yeah, you can do that. Also, I mean, I will say that, like, if somebody comes up to a Trevor and tries to steal, like, rip something like out of their hands and take it, it will be less likely or more likely that they would get sued than if Claire had somebody try and steal her purse and she sprayed them with pepper spray. All right? The law, like the legal system, can still be sexist, and all I'm saying is, if it's sexist, you should take advantage of that if it's in your favor. Right? Every time. That's my opinion. If somebody's going to be sexist, you should exploit that. Right?
It's not for children.
Now, Tommy, unfortunately, and Caden, and Aiden, and Dakota, and Skylar, and Trevor, and Barrick, it does. When I say the law is sexist, I do not mean that it is in our favor. Right? But hey, still, society is largely in favor of males, so throw a bone to the females on this one. Okay, that was maybe a poor choice of words, but actually it's pretty appropriate for how the system works, so I'm just going to stick with it and own up to it. All right, you should assume, right, with the exception of a carjacking in some states, that you never get to use deadly force to defend your chattels. All right. Yeah, no, I'm also surprised. Yeah, you never know. We're talking about genocide in China right now in my contemporary issues class. Yes, Claire, I recycled that one. I'm kind of tired. And I was looking up the Armenian genocide to see when the U.S. finally recognized that. And 49 states recognized that the Turks committed genocide against the Armenians in 1915. Anybody want to guess which one state does not? It is not Texas.
Missouri.
It starts with an M.
Minnesota.
No, not Minnesota. No, Minnesota's nice. No, not Mississippi. There you go. I was like, you're all going the wrong direction. Go south. And not Bridget, not when you leave this state. I'm not suggesting you actually move south. You probably want to do something different than that. But, all right. Let's see. How are we on time? We're all right. Okay. We're now going to move on to intellectual property. And remember, intellectual property is stuff that you create with your mind, which sounds kind of weird, but it's not like any kind of telekinesis, stuff like that.
Is that diagram really telling us how to tear a toilet paper off?
It's not telling you how to tear it. That is the patent, part of the patent for toilet paper. In, 1891? You have to demonstrate what your invention does and why it is novel and useful. Yeah, we take toilet paper for granted, but it really hasn't been around that terribly long. Right? Meanwhile, pooping has been around forever. Right? So think about that. Not too much, though. Not too much. Okay. The reason that toilet paper is up there is because the whole point of creating a legal category called intellectual property is to encourage people to be creative and to invent things that help us all have progress, like terrible disposable toilet paper. And terrible, Tearable, not the other kind of terrible that would mean bad. Like the toilet paper in this school is bad, right? And only marginally terrible. All right. You do this by rewarding people's intellectual work. And there are two categories of rewards through protection. The first is patents. So, a patent is protection for an invention, and only for an invention. That's why you're never going to, if we actually used the horrible, outdated textbook that's back there next to Bridget and Acela, it would have a copyright date, not a patent date. Right? You don't patent books. I'm going to guess these LED light bulbs that I have around the room, somewhere on them is probably a patent number, though, for some element of their design. Now, a patent is hard to get because you have to do things like draw a diagram of something that Bridget was pretty sure everybody knew how to do already. Right? You have to prove that your invention is distinctly new, right, from stuff that's already currently available and useful. The term they use is novel. And usually we would think about a cheap book that you can buy next to the checkout register at Walmart, but here it just means something that is new. And once you've got that patent, you have a monopoly. If you've been through your U.S. history class, you've learned about trust-busting, Teddy Roosevelt breaking up monopolies. It's not exactly the same kind of monopoly, and also your teacher probably didn't give enough credit to Howard Taft. Howard Taft was a better trust-buster than Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy's just better at bragging. All right. A patent grants you a monopoly right for a set period, and that monopoly is something specific. It gives you the exclusive right to either sell your invention or the right to license somebody else to use it. And this is typically what would happen for an inventor. Let's see. Sky, what would you invent? If you could invent anything, what would you invent? A flying car. Okay. So Sky invents a flying car. Right now, other people have done this. I'm sure there's some YouTube video of somebody that's come up with a flying car. Right? But Sky has done something truly novel. Sky has made it practical. I don't know what magic you worked, but you have made a flying car that is affordable and runs on normal fuel and is not too expensive to operate. Whatever that technological breakthrough is, Sky can patent. Now, Sky, do you want to get into the business of building factories, right? Manufacturing batteries, electronic components, engines, all that stuff? No, don't. Well, you invented it. You're the brains. You're not the one that's actually supposed to make these things, right? Okay, well, Sky, you're ruining it by being industrious, right? You're supposed to be a little lazy. I should have prompted you to be a little lazier. You don't want to. And actually, let's be fair. Sky, you could not, this could be nothing to do with laziness. It turns out, right, you've already gone to a lot of work inventing this thing. It would take you billions of dollars to make the factories and all of the stuff to get this going. What would be probably the smarter thing for you to do to actually make money on your invention is just say, hey, Ford Motor Company, GM, Toyota, Honda, would you guys like to license my invention, and then you guys can make flying cars, and I'll just take what's called a royalty on every one that you sell? Sure. Right? And then you sit back and you collect money, and you don't have to work on that anymore. Right? You invented your idea, you've licensed it to other people to use so that they can make money, and in exchange they give you a kickback for allowing them to use your invention. And that's how most people use patents. Right? For most things, right, somebody invents it, and then they turn it over to somebody else to manufacture. We should have gone with toilet paper, because I can understand Sky's like, man, like owning the factories that make flying cars would be awesome. Whereas if I said, all right, Sky, you invented toilet paper. Do you want to start like cutting down trees and turning them into pulp and make toilet paper rolls? That would not be as fun. Right. Okay. So you should think of a license as renting out your invention. These typically only last 20 years, which is still a long time. And you can get it extended. I remember, how many of you have ever taken Claritin in your life? Okay. So I am old enough. I took Claritin when it was brand new. I've mostly grown out of my allergies, but they were really bad when I was a kid. And when Claritin was brand new and under patent, it was really expensive. And the pills seemed to be the size of a Mentos. And they were huge, absolutely huge. Bridget, I'm going to guess when you took Claritin, right, you took it much later than I started taking it. And it was probably very small. Right? Yeah, they're teeny tiny now. Right? They wanted to make you feel like you were getting something for your money. Like, I don't know what else the rest of that was that went with my medicine, but it was just filler. Right. Yeah, so, right. But, I mean, they had a patent, and they could charge what they wanted, and they were able to get an extension for a while. Copyrights are very different. In some respects, they're not. They're also a monopoly protection, but they're not for an invention. They're for just something that you have created as an expression of your imagination. So it might be a composition that Caitlin figured out while being bored on the way to an orchestra competition. It could be a poem that Dakota wrote. Or it could be a sportscast. Who looks particularly into sports here? Sella. Sella definitely looks like an all-around sports fan. So it could be a sportscast. Now, you guys have all seen these. Actually, I really enjoy sharing this for a couple of reasons. Everything about it is just nerdy, but this particular thing. Oh, it's not going to let me make it bigger. It's also, where's the volume? Okay, that's up. That's not up. Okay. At the end of every Major League Baseball sportscast, you get this statement. Okay, so I guess really there's not a couple things. Just the one funny thing about that is somebody took only from a sportscast the MLB saying you cannot reproduce any part of this sportscast, and then they put that on YouTube. Right? That's the only thing they did. And it was not me, by the way. Somebody else did that. Another difference is it's not hard to obtain a copyright. If Allison was really pleased with her essay answer to our question about changing values in America regarding alcohol, as soon as Allison has written that, it's copyrighted. It is Allison's. She didn't have to do anything else. Just by creating it, it's hers, and she has copyright protection. And she will have copyright protection over that essay answer for her entire life plus 70 years. Now, I will tell you that if you want better copyright protection, you actually have to file for a copyright. It's not that hard to do. And then you'll have this nice little certificate from Congress saying at the Office of Patents that you have a copyright protection of your written work. One of the other things to understand is not just that I don't tell you about all of this because I expect that you're all going to be composers. Thank you. But violating copyrights can be a pretty bad thing. Sorry, Caitlin. Okay, but we are going to stop there. I will leave you in some suspense. I promise tomorrow part of our subject is going to include Vanilla Ice and Queen and David Bowie. So you've got that to look forward to. All right, it's not toilet paper tomorrow. All right.
I'm obsessed with him.
Wait, who? David Bowie? No, David Bowie's good. Yeah. Well, I mean, he's deceased, but he was very
The
good.
little casket necklace that I wear as a locket. The pictures
Of David Bowie. Hey, no judgment here. I do like me some Ziggy Stardust.